Okay, I'm gonna mute myself. Pat, give it a 10 count and then you're good to go.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everybody. This is Pat Jones with IBTTA, and I'm pleased to welcome you to Café IBTTA. If the coronavirus pandemic has taught us anything, it's taught us of the need for human connection. And we are here at IBTTA to be a place where you can connect with your colleagues, and we strive to present content that's interesting, relevant, uplifting, and fun. So first, our first segment is What's New? And the New York Times reports that they have studied in the lab Rice Krispies for its ability to absorb impacts in highway crash barriers. In fact, Julio R. Valdez, an engineering professor at San Diego State University, says that Rice Krispies are like crushable sand. It's cheap and the grains are weak. Now, he cautions against using Rice Krispies treats in these crash barriers because the marshmallow adds a little bit extra thickener in there, and you might have too much deceleration in the car where the car itself and the occupants inside might be harmed. Now, speaking of crash barriers and safety, the big news of the day is that the IBTTA Maintenance and Roadway Operations Workshop is going virtual. For reasons beyond our control, we can't hold the meeting face to face, but we're going to put it virtual on the web on July 12 through 14. The meeting planning group has been working on virtual content, and we're going to have about 10 plus hours of content. And related to that, and I'm sharing my screen now so you can see, we were planning to have an in-person service project at the St. Joseph Children's Home. And we may indeed still have the service project there. It remains to be seen. We're still trying to make it happen. But in the meantime, the IBTTA Foundation made a $13,000 contribution to the St. Joseph Children's Home. And I want to read to you a portion of a letter that we received from them thanking us for that contribution. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to show you some illustrations that the children at the home drew to say thank you for the contribution. So they write, the recent donation of $13,000 from the IBTTA Foundation to St. Joseph Children's Home for our natural playground means the world to us. During times of struggle, it is heartwarming to see donors like you come together to show support for children in need. After all, St. Joe's was founded in 1849 by that same kind of compassionate care following the cholera epidemic that swept through Louisville, leaving many children orphaned and without a home. For the children who live at St. Joe's today, we are their only home. We are where they find safety and love. When everything else is unknown, we are the one place that remains unchanged in our children's lives. On behalf of all the children and staff at St. Joe's, we hope you and your loved ones are healthy and safe. And here's the thank you note that accompanied all of the beautiful illustrations from the children. So plan is, we're still planning to do a service project at St. Joe's, but in the event that it's not possible, we've given them some money to help them build that natural playground. And now it's my pleasure to introduce our guest today, Kary Witt. He's a vice president for HNTB. He was the 2009 president of IBTTA, and for many years served as the bridge manager for the Golden Gate Bridge Transportation District. Kary, welcome to Café IBTTA.
Thank you, Pat. What an honor to look at that. All right. What an honor to get to have coffee with you this morning.
Yeah, so Kary, what's new? I make this our first segment every time. What's new in your life? What's happening with you?
Oh, goodness. Well, for starters, those of you who've spent any time with me on video conferences over the last month and a half will notice today my new hairdo. Pam actually ordered clippers on Amazon and a pair of barber scissors, and gave me a haircut over the weekend. And I was looking pretty shaggy, and so I feel much better kept these days. Now there is a kind of a fight or flight thing that happens when your wife starts towards you with a pair of scissors, but I resisted that, and I think that was all for the better. I think the big news I want to share with you, though, is that this weekend marked my son Hunter's graduation from California State University, Sacramento. Graduated with a bachelor's degree, and we're very, very proud of him. He has been furloughed from his job at Caltrans, and so has been home with us the last month because his classes were all online. But I'm also just delighted that he's been accepted into Sac State's master's degree program. So he'll start that in the fall. So that's exciting for him, and that was exciting for our family.
Kary, that's awesome. Congratulations to Hunter and to the whole family. Well, you know, we've seen a lot of changes in the last 8 or 9 weeks since shelter-at-home orders were given by so many states. And I'm curious, Kary, to know, you know, talk about how life has changed for you, both professionally and personally, since the beginning of the pandemic.
Well, Pat, after spending 27 years at the Golden Gate Bridge, commuting 90 minutes each way to work every day from Sonoma County, where I live, the opportunity to work at home is almost a dream come true. And you know, I can work a solid day's work and it still feels like a vacation day without that commute on either end of it. So I've been enjoying working from home. On the other hand, I would say that one of the exciting things about me coming to work for HNTB now 3 years ago was the opportunity to travel around and meet with colleagues and clients and industry people in their on their home turf. And I really enjoyed and really enjoy the travel aspects of my job and getting to work with people in their home environments. And so, you know, after 9 weeks of working at home, I think I can say I'm ready to actually be cooped up in a conference room with a bunch of people and have an actual meeting and go to lunch with some folks. And so I'm ready for some human contact. But I will also say that I am so grateful right now to work for a company and to do the kind of work that allows me to do this work from home and still get a paycheck and still do meaningful work. You know, that's a blessing that I have that I'm very, very cognizant not everyone has. So I try to be thankful and humble at the same time.
That's great. Kary, you know, a lot of people are suggesting that these times are unprecedented, that we've never seen anything like a pandemic like this, and that you know, this is a time unlike any other, and we just don't have the skills to cope with this. And I'm putting up on the screen here a quote that you made in a speech in 2009 when you were president of IBTTA at the height of the global financial crisis. And you said at that time, I don't need to remind anyone in this room that times are tough. Traffic is down, revenues are down, and jobs are being lost. It's a difficult and challenging time. And you talk about how IBTTA could either hunker down and just try to weather the storm, or, you know, really face the storm head on and continue to serve our members, and that we chose the latter. I'd like you to take a look back at 2009 and the things that were going on then, and give us your view on some comparisons to what's happening today.
Well, there are certainly, I think, comparisons to be made, and there are differences too. I mean, obviously, in this crisis, not only are we facing a financial crisis and a real insult to the economy, we're also facing a national health emergency. And so, you know, at least in 2009, we did not have the challenge of being concerned about our own health and safety. We didn't have a lockdown on travel and things like that. But I think the economic crisis that was staring us in the face at the time was pretty similar, and it was equally scary. And I remember the 2008 annual meeting in Baltimore while we were there, and that was in mid-September, you know, is when Lehman Brothers folded, and 2 weeks later, the stock market crashed. And it was just an atmosphere of doom and gloom and fear. And the next meeting we had after that annual meeting was our global summit in Avignon. And it really is just kind of a metaphor for the entire year of 2009, right out of Dickens. It was the best of times and it was the worst of times. And I'm remembering, Pat, it was 3 of your staff, just you, Cheryl, Wanda, Steve Snyder, myself, and Susan Buse were the IBTTA presidents. Stephen was the vice president, and Susan was the president at the time. I was the incoming president. And we got to Avignon, and lo and behold, all of IBTTA's meeting materials did not make it to Avignon with us. And we were a day early so that we could set up and do all the things that we usually do to put on a great meeting. And, you know, after a full day of activity that involved train trips around France for Wanda, we determined that the meeting materials had not yet left Washington, D.C. And so we had a choice to make, and we decided we're going to go ahead with this meeting, and we're going to make it the best meeting that we can possibly make it. And together with our local hosts on the night before the meeting, we were making handwritten name tags, and we were in their offices photocopying the one conference program that we had brought with us, the hard copy. And we put together the best meeting we possibly could. And then in the middle of all of that, it rained more than I have ever seen rain in 24 hours in my life, and caused us to have to reschedule and completely reconfigure our evening social event and dinner that was supposed to be a river cruise, but the river had flooded, and that wasn't possible. And then you know, we had the meeting. The meeting was great. It really was. Everybody just pitched in and worked together. And there are comments still about the quality of that meeting, despite the circumstances. Then on the way home, we stopped, Pat, you'll remember, for a tour of the Meal Viaduct, you, Steve Snyder, and myself, and somehow Steve Snyder managed to cut his hand open and really needed to go see a doctor for stitches. And so we're on our way to Paris to get Steve some medical attention, and we get to, I forget what the town was, where you catch the train to go to Paris, and the railways went on strike. And Malika Sethi, bless her heart, had new people who were able to actually get us on to the last train to Paris before the train system shut down. We were able to get Steve his medical attention, but I think what the best of times that came out of that, and the inspiration that came out of that, was the local people there in Avignon, the IBTTA staff and the IBTTA members pulling together despite some really, really challenging circumstances and making that all work. And going on into 2009, I thought back and relied on that inspiration a number of times.
It sounds like the inspiration came from the need to be resilient, that at the beginning of a crisis, you don't really know what it is that you're going to confront. But in testing and in being challenged by the crisis, you develop those skills. And it reminds me of something my trainer told me about 9 years ago when we first started training together. She said to me that one of the things we're doing is working on your weaknesses, and the exercise I give you are going to feel challenging and frustrating. But as you correct and strengthen those weaknesses, those exercises will become less challenging, and you'll be able to do more and different things. And we will be able to strengthen other parts of your your ability to move and strength. So it sounds to me like the Avignon experience and other experiences like that were sort of like giving those training attributes to an athlete to get stronger and be better.
Well, and that's proving itself out right now, Pat. Your organization, our organization, IBTTA, in very short order, inside of 2 months, has had to completely switch gears and go to entirely online, virtual. And I applaud you and your staff. You're doing that as well or better than any other organization out there. I am probably can say I'm more engaged with IBTTA now than at many times in the past. And certainly as the leader of the Council of Platinum Sponsors, we are more engaged than we've ever been when we were together in person just 3 times a year. I mean, we're meeting bi-weekly. And so I applaud you for being quick on your feet, for being resilient, and through it all for having a really good attitude about it. I mean, I think, you gotta keep a positive outlook during these times.
You mentioned the Council of Platinum Sponsors, and I'm going to ask you about that in a minute. But first, we have some comments and questions. I encourage the folks who are joining us by Zoom and on YouTube Live, we are accepting comments. If you scroll around your screen, you're going to see a chat button, and from there you can ask us questions live. Please ask your questions now or at any time during this Café IBTTA, and we'll try to get to them. And here's one from Joseph Zacco, really mostly a comment. He says, I appreciate also to work from the home office and communicate remotely without the need of heavy traveling. This is one of the advantages during the lockdown because of COVID-19. And then Jeff Heilstedt, he asks, how did Snyder cut his hand open? Well, you know, he was looking at the Millau Viaduct. It was it's just a fantastic facility and structure. And he was looking up in the air and he just kind of wandered off the path and lost his footing and cut it on the rocks just off to the side of the path. Kary, you mentioned the Council of Platinum Sponsors. Tell us a little bit about that group. You're the chair this year, and tell us what they're up to.
Well, Pat, this year, first of all, I'd mentioned that there are 23 platinum sponsors and this year, and that's the most ever in IBTTA history. And this is 23 companies, 23 members of IBTTA who have taken their membership to the next level and decided to really up their support in a very visible way for IBTTA and its mission. And that goes well beyond financial support. And it's pretty remarkable, I think, that you have 23 members out there who are ready and willing to make such a visible vote of confidence in IBTTA and in the toll industry. And what is remarkable is that group's support and their enthusiasm for what we're doing has not wavered one bit in the face of this crisis. And we're engaged. You know, I mentioned, in addition to the financial support, part of our mission is to provide thought leadership and guidance and advice to IBTTA's board of directors and to IBTTA's leadership. And one of the things we're able to do is to mobilize some of the expertise that resides within our companies to help IBTTA and to help the industry focus on some of the issues and problems they are. And we've got a number of subcommittees that are working on important issues like social justice or social equity and environmental justice, new revenue collection models. The cyber security subcommittee under the direction of Mark Cantelli has put on some excellent webinars that I hope all of you have been watching. We're continuing our work on mobility as a service. As it relates to the toll industry, we've got liaisons to the DBE community. So a lot of important work that we're able to do. And I'm just really proud of this bunch. And plus, they're just a lot of really good folks. We're getting together every Friday for a meeting, every other Friday now, I guess. And that's a highlight of my week, getting together with these folks.
That's great. And you are doing a really good job, Kary, of leading that group, building on the success that we've had with John Mike and Fran O'Connor and Jim Wilson and all the others who've led the Council of Platinum Sponsors. I think you bring a sense of energy and optimism to that group, and you're really helping them stay together. You know, you talked about all of the different things that the Council of Platinum Sponsors are working on: cybersecurity, mobility as a service, a lot of forward-looking, cutting-edge issues. And you and I talked before about this article that came out in Forbes magazine about a month ago, written by Timothy Papandreou. Is the coronavirus the transportation industry's opportunity? And he talks about how, with the reduction in traffic and a lot of other things happening, people immediately and rapidly being able to work from home, that we are sort of presented with a large what if scenario in terms of transportation, that it's almost like an experiment here that we wouldn't have been able to do under normal circumstances, and here it is right in front of us. Give me some of your thinking about this experiment and what the changing transportation landscape that we have at the moment portends for IBTTA, tolling, the future. Any observations at all you have about the Papandreou article and related issues?
I thought that was a great article, and I really encourage everybody to read it and think about it a little bit. And I think, you know, what I got from that article was that are we selling ourselves short if we are looking forward to recovery in getting that gets us back to where we were and we go on with life as usual? I think we're selling ourselves short. I agree with him. I think what we need to do is think of this as a unique and historical opportunity to say, let's recover into something that's better than we had before. You know, kind of ask that big what if question. What if we could, in the course of bringing this whole thing back to life, what if we could make it better than it was before? And, you know, that a few weeks ago, I was helping a colleague try to retrieve some data from some air quality sensors in the San Francisco Bay Area that have been recording criteria pollutants in the air of the Bay Area for, you know, 20, 30 years. And we were looking back at this data that we had downloaded and noticed that for the last 2 months, the pollution levels in the Bay Area are lower than they have ever been. And my initial reaction was, well, there's some kind of a malfunction here. That can't be right, because it was so dramatic and so sudden. And what we realized was that this is actual data to show what it might be like if we were able to go to an all-electric vehicle fleet, if we were able to reduce the number of internal combustion engines on the road. And, you know, up to this point, all we've been able to do is model that. And we've been able to hypothesize about what might happen to air quality if we had a 30 or a 50 or a 70% reduction in traffic. Here's real data. And I think, you know, the opportunity to capitalize on that and to use that because we've now proven something we could only hypothesize before. So I think I agree with the hypothesis of that article, and that is that we should be thinking about ways to come back to something better than what we had before.
Right, right. Yeah, not just restore what was, but create something new that's better for more people.
Absolutely.
Here's a comment from Farzan Ahmed, who's the executive director of the Ohio Turnpike and Infrastructure Commission and a member of our board. Shout out to you, Farzan. Our current HR policy does not allow work from home. We plan to change it for positions that can be done remotely. We also plan to create remote work locations at our service plazas and maintenance facilities to be able to attract talent across Ohio, and not just in Cleveland. Working from home will also give us access to talented people who, due to circumstances, may not be able to leave home. That's a really that's a creative way to use these circumstances, I think.
It's exactly why you want this guy on your board of directors, Pat.
That's exactly
right. That is great thinking. Yep.
All right. Here's a question from Snehal Ambare. Good morning, Pat and Kary.
Snehal.
We all have adapted to teleworking so well and embraced this virtual environment. Of course, we should have those in-person meetings and lunches with our colleagues. But what are your thoughts on teleworking becoming a norm in our industry, similar to the IT industry? What are your thoughts about that, Kary?
You know, I will have to confess that I was one of the people that I've always been a skeptic about working from home. It just always had a ring to it that I didn't like. And I always imagined there were a whole lot of things that just couldn't be done from home, and therefore maybe a few people here and there, our IT people or whatever, could work from home, but the bulk of us had to be in the office every day. I think we've surprised ourselves. I think that IBTTA has surprised itself in a very positive way at how successful the online engagement has been. I think that HNTB, the company I work for, has surprised itself in our productivity and our ability to have actually highly technical work going on in people's homes. And the collaboration has not suffered significantly like we thought it would. I don't think that the office environment is going away. And I think human beings are social animals and we need to be together. And I look forward to that time. But I do think that we will be looking very differently at accommodating certain employees or accommodating, I think the idea of having satellite work facilities around the state, so that if someone wants to work for a turnpike agency that's statewide, they don't necessarily have to move to the headquarters area. That's brilliant thinking. And I think the technology is there, and I think we've proven that it works.
Kary, you are a very optimistic guy. And I want to ask you about that sense of optimism. And also, what is it that inspires you? You know, in these bleak and challenging times where you're confronted by obstacles almost at every turn. Tell me a little bit about what inspires you.
I think you're right, Pat. I'm a pretty optimistic guy, sometimes to a fault. I tend to look for the bright spots and the silver linings in almost everything, and that's served me pretty well over time. And I think that I have found over time, both in my personal life and my professional life, that hard times often do bring out the very best in people. And we have certainly seen that in IBTTA. I mean, a couple of reasons to be optimistic. First of all, about the industry, the underpinnings, the foundation of the toll industry is sound. The house may be on fire a little bit right now, but it's not off the foundation. And I think that's important to remember. This shock that we've gotten has been very sudden, and it's been very deep. But I think that the foundation is strong enough, and I've been in this industry for 30 years, and it has been a great place to build a career. I believe in it, and the toll-based, the user fee-based financial models and everything are sound, and I think they're going to become even more important as time goes on. I think that tolls are going to be one of the first transportation revenue streams to come back online. Unfortunately, I think there's going to be a hesitance for people to get back in mass transit, to get back to air travel. And I think the alternative to that is going to be highways. And I think toll roads are a big part of that. So I think the revenue streams that are generated as traffic starts to come back are going to become critical to the agencies, but also to the whole transportation system. And then just, you know, I've watched IBTTA. We talked about 2009 and how we made the decision to stay the course, and we were resilient and we got through that. In fact, we were leaders. Another just watershed event for me was 9/11. And anyone who was part of this industry at the time remembers that hit really, really close to home. You know, we were all trapped in Boston while those events unfolded, and shout out to Mary Jane O'Meara for taking really good care of us for an extra week in Boston. But we watched IBTTA not only survive that shock, we watched IBTTA lead us out of it. You know, it was within 2 months. IBTTA was sponsoring an infrastructure security workshop in Washington, D.C. with the owners of some of the biggest, most important transportation infrastructure in America, talking about the new normal. And you know, in every big crisis, there's opportunity, and IBTTA has shown that it is resilient. The final thing I would say to that point is, after 30 years in this industry, I also know there's a lot of really good people in IBTTA, and I've gotten to know many of you personally, not just professionally, but I've developed close personal friendships. And this industry, more than any I've been involved in, and I've had a few jobs here and there in my career, this industry is made up of really good, high quality people. And I mean that not just professionally, I mean that personally as well. And there is a power in the genuine caring that we have for one another and the caring that we have for our industry. So I am extremely bullish on the future, both of the toll industry, but also of IBTTA.
Kary, you're reinforcing a point that our IBTTA president, Samuel Johnson, made last week when he talked about the family nature of IBTTA and how that is probably the most critical asset of the entire association, that it feels like a family, that people want to nurture the association as a family, and they feel familial with all of their contacts within the association. I'm going to share my screen again and ask you, Kary, to do a little promo here. And yes, this is more inspiration for the members of IBTTA. Tell us about this, Kary.
You do not want to miss this event. This was originally scheduled to be presented with the young in conjunction with the Young Professionals Council activities at the Tech Summit in San Diego, and we have gotten Sean Thompson to agree to do this in a virtual format. and to take it to a much wider audience than we had intended, which is just a wonderful thing. And so next Thursday, the 28th at 3 o'clock Eastern time, I really encourage you to tune in to this webcast with Sean Thompson. The guy is incredible. Former world champion surfer, author, entrepreneur, and leader. And he has some real insights into how to help you get your head in the right place to navigate situations like we find ourselves in. Bring your family. Put this up on Apple TV or whatever. Put it on your big screen TV and gather the family around. You don't want to miss it.
Thanks to HNTB for sponsoring this event, for making it possible for people to listen to Sean, and we're really excited about it. I want to do a couple of other shout outs. First, a big shout out to the Women in Tolling, who put on a great event earlier this month. We're going to have an event every month with the Women in Tolling, and the next event is on June 1st. The topic is unconscious bias, with an expert on the topic by the name of Tracy Brown. That's June 1. Look for it on the IBTTA website. Secondly, I want to shout out to the IBTTA Leadership Academy, and all of the Leadership Academy classes from 2008 to 2020 are going to have meetups on May 26th between 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. You can find information about that on the IBTTA Leadership Academy LinkedIn page. And if you haven't been contacted, you will. So just pay attention. Then the final thing I want to promote is IBTTA's nationwide virtual press briefing. I'm going to be moderating some of the smartest minds in the business, including our president, Samuel Johnson, our first vice president, Mark Compton, our second vice president, Diane Scacchetti, as well as Chris Tomlinson, our immediate past president, and Tim Stewart, our immediate past president. We're going to do a virtual press briefing talking about the effects of COVID-19 on the tolling industry and a look into the future. So there's all our promos. Kary, hold up your mug. I want to say thanks to everybody for joining us today. Cheers. Kary, it's great to see you. Everybody, have a great week. Thanks to the Thousand Islands Bridge for the mug. And if you'd like to send us a mug, please do. We'll promote you on the air. Kary, again, thanks everybody for joining us.
Thanks for the invitation, Pat. Thanks, everybody.
You betcha. Stay safe, and we'll see you down the road.